Alright, welcome to Sanity Creature project I'm making of. Um, Joined a team from the Epic Games forums, for UDK. And they're making like I guess it's a survival horror class. Kind of like how, let me just find this folder a sec. Sanity. It's kind of like how Amnesia worked, if you ever played that game, where you don't have the ability to like kill the enemy that's chasing you. You're just kind of like gotta run away and survive that way. So definitely sort of my genre of game in terms of how you play and you're not like fully equipped with like a million guns and stuff and you're invincible. I like games like that, where there's a sort of element of real fear, as in real life. If you're being chased by this guy right here, who looks extremely mental, you wouldn't stand a chance. He would just destroy you, absolutely. He'd just annihilate you. So I do like games like with a bit of realism about the creatures that you're actually facing, and the fact that they would probably just completely destroy you and kill you and then eat your babies and stuff. But this project is going to be a pain in the ass to do, though, just because of the sheer amount of detail that's on this model. But I think it's going to be very rewarding, as the art style is really unique. Just going to get a bit of Dynamesh going. Lower its res, turn on project, turn on blur. And I'm just going to pull out these legs. Got a really strange little body going on. And you might see me dropping into Skype every now and again, as I'm in a Skype conversation with the guys who are making this game. Just trying to figure out, because his legs look quite slender on the actual concept drawing, so I'm just trying to figure out what his body type would be, and does look like he's hunched over a little bit, but I think that's going to come on, later on. Give him a bit of an ass. Can't really tell much more what's going on here. I'm just basically pulling forms out at this point. Not too bothered about how these forms are looking. I'm just literally getting all my shapes in there. Then I'm going to refine. I'm probably not going to re-topologize this like I did in most of my other videos, just because I'm working on a project this time. This isn't out of my own leisure. I want to establish a sense of speed and efficiency with what I'm doing, instead of just taking my time. And I want to sculpt this quite quick and just get it done. I think that's probably a more professional way to come out. I'm just going to pull out some arms now. Probably better off using snake hook, to be honest with you. I'm just thinking his elbow, because this is, I think what's going on with this character is that is the clothing has kind of like morphed into his skin. Like all this right here is like a cloth-like material that's covering his face. It's all cloth. This is cloth, like some sort of whip weapon, like it's going to whip you and stuff. These like crazy amount of belts. Obviously, these are supposed to be what's left of his pants, and then obviously this bit down here is flesh. But I like how the pants are kind of like draped around, and it's very sort of organic in the way that it's positioned around him. It's been interesting to make that. But for now, I'm just going to come off symmetry and just pull that down as to what will be the clothing. But he does have some sort of arm shape, I guess, which I'm going to have to pull out. But for now, I'm just literally going to pull out some mass down here. Probably best off using that. Like, just so I've got something there to use and play around with to make that shape. If I get my snake hook, and the arm comes It's quite far down. I'd probably say it's quite actually like down, be about there, but obviously a lot bigger. Once I've established enough, like, you know, sort of startup business, you know, I can really start to refine these shapes a little bit better. Like his head wants to come over there. The only problem about working in character's eyes, because there's no symmetry, is that it's just so much more time consuming. Let's get that hump. Got a bit of a pinch going on there, but it's cool. And then now that I've got all the forms that I need in this super rough state, I can start to refine them a little bit better. You know, like make it look a bit more relatable in terms of, you know, it existing in our world. I'm going to do this just by pulling some of these around. I'm going to come in with clay build up in a minute. But for now I'm just going to literally just pull this mesh around with move and be pretty specific with the areas I'm using. It's got very skinny legs. Trying to think about what this material would do if it's stretched. I'm going to have to come in with the clay tubes on that one. And just gonna move this arm around. Not really paying too much attention about what it's gonna look like right now. But I want some sort of bend in this arm, and then obviously where it ends, when the cloth is just dangling down, like so. And the same with this arm right here. Need some kind of bend. I'm just gonna actually pull that back and then rotate it out a little bit. Well, we'll pull it in, bring this down a little bit. So I have to think about, you know, how this is going to work as a game model. So I'm being very careful about, you know, not positioning things super close and all that sort of stuff. Let's smooth that out a little bit. Okay, I'm going to lower the res even further down. It's about 24, and it's going to be like, actually I'm going to keep that as it is. So I want to try and keep quite a low resolution version of this because it's always handy, but I don't want to retopologize because it's too time consuming. However, I do need to twist these feet a little bit, try and my symmetry. Make sure that's in the center. Just trying to make it more natural, thinking about end poses and stuff, you know. So a lot of the times the character looks as good as it sort of posed, you know. If you have a funky looking pose, you've got a funky looking character. It doesn't matter if, you know, how beautifully it's been sculpted. If the pose is wrong, then you've got a problem. So I'm just trying to think a little bit about that. I really need to pull out some hands on this. I'm just thinking about the position of it. The position of his hand in like his normal state would kind of be how it is on this picture, I guess. Let's get my snake hook. I'm gonna have to go up in the subdivision level to do this, and we need a thumb. Probably haven't got enough res here. Need a thumb. Index finger, no, not enough res. Thumb. Hand is going to look really dodgy to begin with, just 'cause it's going to sort of go around a weird shape. But that's more than enough res you need on the hand. I'm probably going to need a little bit more resolution in these hands here. But I don't know if you can sort of, if there's a way to Dynamesh sort of like, So I would like to have this resolution still. If I just go up a little bit and oh my god, I had symmetry. No, it doesn't matter. I had symmetry on. So these fingers need to be quite defined. No. There's no way for it. I'm going to have to Dynamesh and just like this. We go up to about 50. See what that gives us. It's a little bit better, not enough. Try 55. I can probably work with that. So you can't really go into too much detail with the fingers, but I want to be able to, you know, have at least a lot to work with there. Let me just see what res we can go to. Oh, that's it basically. So it's going to be really difficult to pose that later on, you know, because I don't have a low res version of it. But I think it probably looks okay. If I can just play around with like the forms a little bit and bring his arms back. Maybe give him a bit of forearm twist or something. Thinking about as well, like probably wants to be a bit further out, it being a game model and everything. Let me just sort of get a better selection on this shoulder here. I can just pull it out a little bit. Yeah. Just so I can sort of get into areas a little bit easier. But I think that'll do for now. I'm just going to put a bit more mass where it's needed, like into here. Doesn't really have a shoulder anymore, but I'm going to try and like hint at one. Alright, so now I'm going to go up a subdivisional level. I'm just going to come in now with my clear billet brush, completely standard brush. There's no sort of effects on this yet. Just using the square alpha to kind of block in areas. Just to kind of feel it out, I guess, because there's no symmetry on this model at all. The eyes. Everything's going to be super rough for a long period of time on this model, just while I roughly, you know, try and get in the forms. There's a lot of that sort of boiled look about him. Pretty nice concept though. I like how they've gone into the detail and all the lines and stuff, you know. I used to do biro drawings like that when I was like in high school, so it's kind of a bit of a nostalgia trip for me. But I want to make sure the flow of the lines are that of the actual concept. But that's really sort of later on. In a minute, I just need to think about big forms, which is more important at this point in time. Although I don't mind adding a bit of, you know, brush flow, you know, where I'm naturally brushing to try and suggest, you know, how this is flowing on this character. But I also don't want to get a sense of muscle grouping, as it just helps sell concepts, you know, and you can viably make out what muscles are what. But on such a sort of warped creature, it's going to be pretty difficult. Especially this arm thing here. So I assume that it's going to be whipping, like it's going to be quite a sort of big, obvious animation purpose here. So I have to think about how that's going to look, you know, if I rotate this arm around. So there's going to be quite a lot of theory behind what I'm doing in terms of, you know, how it's going to look if this was animated. But other than that, I'm just trying to make it as close to the concept as possible. It's going to take a long time to get it there, but that's just the process of these atypical characters. It's probably why I'm not used as much, because of the amount of effort, you know, it takes to make one. We're going to need a bit of a bit of auto masking on that bit, which is so thin. And we'll make that eventually. The thing about Zbrush is that it's so easy to decrease the volume of something and make it into something that it originally wasn't, but you can never add. So when I'm blocking in now, I always just put big chunky objects where, you know, I said I can't add all these creases and stuff. I've probably got enough rest down here to do that now, even though it's just a random sort of ball objects before. So yeah. As for this now, I need to figure out what sort of this arm is going to look like. It's going to chisel in some kind of bicep for now. And then obviously I'm going to cover it in all those boils and stuff that's going to go on. Yeah, it's got a bit of forearm twist going on, so just going to add that muscle going in. Shoulder, elbow. Super rough elbow and tricep. Some sort of back muscle. But I can use symmetry down there, so I will make use of that. And then obviously some rough adaptation of the shoulder coming in. And I can probably use symmetry down here as well. Where we sort of like these belts. Sorry, I keep on missing the model there. All these belts are going to be wrapped around his body. Back into non-typical. Didn't mean to do that. I'm literally just going to rough in some areas where these belts are going to go. Nothing final or anything. Just so I know that they're there and that's where they need to be and nothing can overlap them. It looks like they're quite far down his pelvis as well. So about somewhere around there. Then he's got all this twisting down here. Where his clothing used to be. This is interesting. I suppose the advantage of having such a detailed character is that I can just brush along these areas as much as I want, and ultimately it won't really change much because it's going to be all detail anyway, so it's kind of a nice thing. You know, I don't have to worry about the smoothness of my mesh. I'm just a bit tall on what's doing his back because he's got all his biles on here, you know. Which I'm literally just going to have to build up. Super rough. It does cut down here though. There's a bit of a build up around here. And we've got to add all those cloves in as well. I think the most important thing about doing a model like this is how much you sort of spend on this sort of blocking in phase. Just because it's the basis of everything, you know. All the work that's going to be done on this character is going to be based off of what you're getting out of this section or this stage. I'm trying to make a gradual sort of progression, you know, from like clothing to boils, because only one side of him is covered in boils, so it doesn't look like anything yet, but it's starting to look a bit like the concept. Arm's a bit of a mess. Probably going to do some work on this. It still retains the arm shape on the concept, which I need to get back. The main thing is that it doesn't have a hand yet, it's just a sort of Michelin Man sort of shape. So in order to do that, I'm going to have to sort of carve back, sort of make a hand, and then obviously on top of that make it look like the biled shape that it has. I think at this point in time it's because it's got really big forearms. Need to beef up this hand as well, make it a lot bigger. It's the actual palm that he has is really huge, and the fingers are much longer and sort of more predominant as well. Probably won't be able to do that until the later stages when I have a bit more res down here, but I can certainly sort out some of the areas that are making it look so goofy at this point in time. Just mainly sort of is around here. But he sort of needs those big tendons like went through, and the thumb needs to come further back and sort of behave more like a thumb. Oh crap! Sorry, I messed up. So the thumb, he needs to sort of, the thumb has always been a strange thing to sculpt. I'm just going to sort of pull him out using this move tool, make him sort of as big as he needs to be, and the sort of correct curvature. So he sort of needs to sort of be bent around how a thumb should be, but it's pretty massive now compared to the fingers, so it looks silly. But once I sort of extrude these out as well, just trying to get good selection on these fingers right here. That'll do. Now I can just sort of like pull these fingers out uniformly. You probably have to do one each individually though. The fingers though, they take the time doing these. Once the shape's changing them, it'll be a lot easier to sort of understand how these are coming on. Never sort of keep your fingers straight, because your hand is never, like, when you see those awful models when the hands are like completely flat and it just looks ridiculous, because your hand is never completely flat. It's always sort of bent in some way. But once I play around with these a little bit and I sort of get in the forms and add a bit more mass into it, it'll look fine. Hand always does look a bit weird when you first start to sculpt them. Probably better off spacing these fingers out a little bit and making this pinky a little bit longer, but ultimately putting it sort of a bit further out. Just going to flare these fingers a little bit just to make them a bit more workable than they are right now. And we'll do the same with you. Twist you out a little bit. And now we can bend you in. Like, not like that. Cannot hear you, I can't hear you. I'm just going to bend that pinky and then I'm probably going to move to something else. Yeah, you don't really have to spend too much time on each stage, you know. Just as long as you sort of whiz around and like make sure everything's had a bit of TLC, everything will be fine. But just make sure you bend your fingers at some point. It's just typically it's easier to do it when it's uber low res, you know. It's looking a bit more hand-like now, but still looks a bit dodgy. I'm actually just going to isolate this arm so I can work on it a little bit easier. Just using my move tool now. I'm gonna eventually, you know, mess it all up anyway, but I just like to have a decent underlying anatomical structure most of the time. Even if it's not completely correct, but you know, as long as it's there and the thing actually makes sense, that's cool. These two muscles do kind of meet. The arm is such a weird thing. You know, the way he actually twists and stuff. It's ridiculously complicated. I think what I'm missing here is the actual fatness of his palm, you know, when it sort of gets pushed out like that. And just the actual thumb should be like way over there. It needs to be fatter as well. It needs to kind of have that bulge of muscle around here and here. Smooth out those areas a little bit. Add some exaggerated muscles in, knuckles, sorry. And now I'm just going to inflate a little bit. Just to beef these out a little bit. Maybe not that much. I can't really do the shape of the foam of this res, but at least it's actually looking a bit more like a hand now. The more time I spend on it, the more it looks better, I guess. I don't want to spend too much time on this press, but like I said, the more time you spend on it in the lower levels, the better it usually looks. So I'm just going to take my time a little bit with this. Make sure I have a nice looking hand. Seems a bit weird down here, like I need to pull it out a little bit more. Pull that finger in a little bit. But once I get a bit of mass in there, make it look more like a claw, it'll better represent the concept art, I guess. So I think people judge their models too early on, like when, you know, you're first sort of sculpting. I've said this so many times throughout different projects, you know. It's not going to look good until you're like really sort of later down the line in things. At this stage, you know, when you're first starting a model, you know, just be very open about what you're doing and don't sort of freak out if something isn't looking right, because you've only been sculpting this thing for like a couple of minutes, you know. There's no big deal. Just gonna take a look now. Ready to exaggerate that hand a bit more. I'm just going to get some of the bulges in there now, especially on this forearm where there's big sort of things coming through. Just get the mass in there that I need, but I also do want to retain the shape of the hand that I've got coming through. I'm assuming that this entire surface, this entire arm is just engulfed in all this sort of infection and stuff, so trying to sort of be subtle in terms of, you know, keeping the actual shape of it, because you can still make out the arm shape, you know, even on the concept, even though it's just a collection of balls in a sense. But yeah, it's going to take quite a lot of work to refine all this shapes and stuff like that. There's quite a lot going on. And I'm probably going to do the excess sort of clothing that's coming through, you know, like all this stuff around there as different subtools and that. It's probably going to be a little bit easier to do it that way. It'll probably look more convincing too. Let's think about the shape of this guy a little bit better as well. Bringing his arm a little bit. I do like that big sort of bubble that's on around there. It's probably not that big, but the thing that's, I can't really do the hand that much, but I think I've got a good base there for what this is, to do what I want with that. I'm just going to think about the just some of the sort of forms a little bit, especially around here. He looks a bit too fat. On the concept, it looks like he's a very skinny guy. I can sort that out obviously when I bring in the belts for him. Just doing a bit of push and pull around different areas now. Let's take a look at his waist. I haven't really touched that area yet. That's the guy who's leading this project, asking me how long it's going to take me to do this. Typically, depending on the nature of the model, I think this would probably take a good week. And I also just need to figure out I need to put in some legs, some knees and stuff, because he's got quite a sort of human muscly thing going on here with his knees. So I'm just going to roughly, because my off the top of the head, my anatomy of the legs is pretty shit. So I mean, I know there's like a tibia that comes down and stuff, and the shin bone. It usually does take quite a lot of effort for me to make decent looking legs. So for now, I'm just going to go in and just sculpt in something really rough. I always seem to over-exaggerate as well when I am doing roughs, and it also gets toned down later on. You're sort of sat there thinking, oh my god, what's he doing? It's just the way I work sometimes, you know, everything gets over-exaggerated and looks like ridiculously dodgy. I think that's just the way my mind is, you know, it's a bit sort of exuberant. And let's just make something out of these feet. Nothing too interesting, just getting a base. Doesn't look like he's leaning forward a little bit though. I should have probably pulled out some toes, to be honest with you. He's got a bit of a claw going on. Probably can get away with it. We'll have to see. Don't want to. I think we'll probably have to pull that out a bit further each time we go off his subdivision level. When did we vote 4 claws? Yeah, I think because I didn't dynamesh that area. Every time I go up in a subdivisional level, I'll just pull out a little bit each time until I've got enough to work with, but it should be fine. Not worried about it or anything. I always hit that V button. Yeah, that's fine. I'll just respond to this guy. Travis. Don't know how you spell symmetry. 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 Yeah. Probably take a good week if I work on it solidly, but I don't know. I mean, that's working on it like, I don't know, a couple of hours every day. Not a couple of, like 3-5 hours. Probably taking me about a week. But yeah, I think that's a pretty decent start. There's a lot to be figured out still. But yeah, that's pretty much the basis now. Just need to continue going up the divs until I'm happy with what I've got. That's pretty much it for this. 45 minutes.